Welcome to One Quick Question with Infomedia, your source for answers to your questions about websites, digital marketing, and more. I'm your host, Carrie Rollwagon. Today's episode is a recording of our most recent live One Quick Coffee event. We're talking about what happened when we lost our marketing manager and how we kept posting on social media anyway. I hope you enjoy it. All right, and I think maybe some people are coming in, they're getting coffee and things like that, but welcome to One Quick Coffee. So One Quick Coffee is put on by Infomedia. I think a lot of you are clients, so you're familiar with Infomedia, but we are a website development company, and then we do kind of everything related to websites. So whether that's like photo, video, somebody was complimenting our photo video setup earlier, or said I have nothing to do with that. Our team does that. So we do that. We do copy for websites, and we can help with digital marketing and all kinds of things like that. So that is what Infomedia does. And then welcome to today's topic, which is we lost our marketing manager, and here's how we kept posting anyway. We were very dramatic about it. You see the tears on the graphic. Our designer was like, this is never going to get approved, and we were just like, oh, sure, let's go with it. That's what happens when the marketing manager isn't there anymore, that you're just like, approved. So I'll actually be speaking today. My name is Carrie. I'm Vice President of Strategic Planning at Infomedia. But before that, I was Director of Communications at Infomedia, and then I also used to own Church Street Coffee and Books, and I did social media for that, and I was a freelance writer, so I did like social media and marketing for a bunch of different clients. So partially that's why I'm speaking today, and then also that's kind of why a lot of this work ended up kind of on me when our marketing manager left, because I've done this before. But also, when I did this, the last time I did this as my full-time job, it was like 5 years ago. So not only have I kind of been out of this for a little bit, but a lot has changed in marketing and especially in social media in the past like 5 years. So we were kind of left with a big gap here. I did want to say our marketing manager moved on to just like a really great opportunity. I think some companies look at it like, if you are happy with the company, you should just stay here forever, and I definitely don't look at it like that. I think if we're developing our people the way that we should, sometimes like you grow and change and you just need other opportunities. So she just had like a really great opportunity to run marketing for like several companies, so she took that, and we're super happy for her, and also we ran this topic by her before she left. So I did want to mention like Elena is actually like really cool at this topic. We all still hang out. She comes to these events usually, that kind of thing. All right, so Infomedia was in this position where we had somebody running marketing and social media, and they left. And you may be in that position, but you might have also just come to this talk because you're worried about being in that position, or maybe just because you don't have a marketing manager. Like, of course you could be in this position because somebody came and found another position, but there are lots of ways you could lose your marketing or social media manager or the person who does this. They could get promoted like I did when I left Director of Communications. Like, obviously there was a gap there. So sometimes somebody just gets promoted. Sometimes somebody leaves the company, like Elena got promoted to a customer. That's my Starbucks language coming out. Or your budget gets cut, and maybe this was part of somebody's job, but now they have other jobs and they can't wear this hat anymore. Or maybe you never had one in the first place, because plenty of companies don't have the budget to have a full-time person for marketing or for social media. So a lot of times it's just kind of like shoehorned into what we're already supposed to be doing. So that still leaves a gap in what you can do. Or you might be using a freelancer, and this is not implying that all freelancers, like there are plenty of good freelancers, but sometimes your freelancer stops answering your calls. Maybe they have somebody who's like their top client now, and you're not getting the response you used to. Or maybe you just have hired a marketing company or a freelancer, and you don't feel like they get you. They're just kind of putting out generic work. So there are a lot of reasons that you may have a gap here that you want to fill. So when we had this gap, why didn't we just hire for this position? Like, that would have been the easiest thing to do, and definitely less stressful for me. But first of all, Pam is super excited to see herself on screen, as we all are. So first of all, we as a company are pretty picky about what we put out. We're picky about our branding, like the look of what we're putting out, the design and the feel of that. We're picky about what we say and how we say it. So infomedia is in a tech field which can be really jargony, and most of our clients really appreciate that we know what we're talking about, but we also tend to communicate in the way they can understand. So we needed somebody who can do that. There are people who could write social media for us, but when we have done that in the past, before they learn our language, it can come out really like just presenting something that we don't want to present. So for one thing, yes, we could train somebody to do that, but even if we were hiring, we would have a 2 or 3 month gap where they were really learning how we want to communicate. But also, we saw this as an opportunity to regroup. Sorry, I'm seeing the faces, like these are photos most of our staff hasn't seen before, so they're laughing at each other. Brad isn't here, so he features prominently in this, actually. So we think that every 2 to 5 years, you should be rethinking your website, your marketing, your social media. That doesn't mean throw it all out and start again, but it does mean look at those things that were working before and see if they're still working. And so when Elena found another position, we kind of thought this was a convenient time for us to step back and kind of regroup and kind of rethink that plan. We also have our sister company, Uptick Marketing, who helps us with the basics of advertising. So we were really looking at social media, newsletters, emails, things like that, and we weren't trying to figure out like PPC campaigns. Okay, so why wouldn't we just pause posting and just take a step back as we're figuring it out? Actually, let me pause here and say if it's warm in here, it's because the power was going on and off earlier, so FYI, sorry about that. And if the internet's still not working, that's why. So feel free to fan yourselves. I will not be offended. Anyway, okay, so why don't we just pause? Well, really because social media especially values consistency. Google definitely does too, but Google isn't as demanding as it used to be. We used to be like, we want you blogging a lot, at least once a week, and now you can kind of pull back on that more. But on social media, it is fine to pause, but you are going to lose some of the ground that you already built up if you pause. So we didn't really want to pause because we wanted to build on what we already had. So also the audience likes consistency. People who are following you, they don't want to be like hit over the head all the time with what you're doing, but they do want to see that you're there. And then also we just had things to promote. We have these events, we have sales things that we want to push out to our clients, and this is how we communicate with clients. So we didn't want to totally stop posting. So when I say marketing, what am I talking about? So for Infomedia, we are talking about blogs, newsletters, emails. We have the Localist podcast, which is a podcast that I do, but Infomedia sponsors it, and we produce it at Infomedia. Events like One Quick Coffee, and then we also have social media. But mostly today, I'm going to be concentrating on social media. So one reason that I want to concentrate on that is that we also looked at all of those other things, but our plans for those were pretty, kind of easy. For most of those things like newsletter, blogs, things like that, we looked at, could we do less? Could we post less frequently, but still be here? And then we kind of distributed that work among the company instead of just saying one person, this is your entire job now. So that's kind of how we approach those other things. But social media is kind of like its own beast. So I'm going to really dig into that more today. So where did we begin? I had a whole slide for that. I don't know why. So we really took inventory of our existing content. And this is kind of the core of what saved us. I kind of call this a content bank. So we have a lot of content that we already had. We have photo, text, video. I will say we are obviously lucky in that we have a photo video team, so we had a lot of this stuff already. We actually weren't using a lot of this stuff because you probably know if you're in this position in a company, the leap between getting the assets made and actually posting them is actually kind of a big leap. People have to communicate with each other, doesn't always go well. So we actually had a lot of content we weren't necessarily using. And our photo video team does organize it really well. So we did have that going for us. I am going to talk about like DIY ways to do this too, because you also can use Infomedia's team because you can hire us and we would love to do that. But we also try to make these talks things that you can actually do. So it's great if you hire our team. You can also hire another team or you can kind of DIY it. But first, we really looked at building a content bank, so gathering the things that we already have. If you don't have this yet, for one thing, you can start kind of building this. But also, you may have assets you're not thinking about. Because you have photo, video, sure, that is going to be key eventually to posting on social media. But you can also look at your written assets. So you can look at your blog, newsletters, emails. You can look at onboarding materials, brochures, really anything that your company has put out, even if like your company president did a good talk somewhere and you have a video of it or a transcript of it. Really think about like all of those assets that you put together for your company, because that's what's going to go into your content bank and help you make more content out of it. All right, so when you are building that content bank, these are kind of the things to look for. First of all, look for something that's evergreen, and that just means you can use it at any time. So if you have some cute photos of people in Christmas sweaters, that's great, but you could probably only use it at one time of year. So that's not necessarily going to go into your content bank, because what we're really looking for here is content that can kind of be remixed, because especially like social media has changed a lot in that when we're using photo and video, we can kind of present it differently. So you don't want to be, what we're trying to avoid is every week or every day even saying like, oh no, I need something to post on social, I have to go make it right now. You know, we're trying to say, really to build almost a stock library that isn't stock photography. Because we all are pretty like savvy when we are looking at social media, and stock photography really turns us off. But it is helpful to have some of those things that are I don't want to say generic, but can kind of be reused and remixed. So that's kind of what we're trying to build in this content library. So when you're talking about visuals, talk about visuals that don't have a strong, like, this is obvious really from a time of year. And then when you're talking about text, take things like, for Infomedia, we'll talk about, you know, website security or how you need media on your website, or these are themes that we bring up all of the time. And then start with whatever's easiest. I can't stress this enough. Don't let like perfect be the enemy of the good here. If you're trying to fill a gap or just start posting, I think go with what is the most accessible to you. So if you're like, I know we have a great video from 3 years ago and somebody has access to it, don't chase that down right now. Kind of make a list of those things so you know you can go back to it, but don't try to drill into that. I would also say, don't worry too much about social media trends here. Trends can be really fun and they can perform really well. Like we have a video of our founder, John Lavoie, who's 80 years old, doing the like Gen Z slang trend where he uses that. It's really charming. It's like a comfort video to me. I love it. And it performed, I think, better than any other post we've done ever. So it was great. It also took quite a bit of effort to get it going. He asked for a glossary of terms. What do these mean? We had to do like a little script. We had to edit it. So those trends, if that's something that like energizes you and you can really do, that's great. But if you are trying to fill a gap and you don't have anybody to do it, don't start there. You can make a list of things that you, like good ideas you want to do later, but really first content, just worry about having content you can always pull from, even if you're busy. You don't want to wake up and think, oh no, I haven't posted on social today and I have to create that content today. All right, so we also took a little time to audit the performance of the platforms we are already using. We didn't drill down heavily into this, but we did want to look at what was working, what wasn't, and we really wanted to establish a goal for each piece of content we were doing. Because as companies, we can get so used to saying, like, well, we've always had a newsletter. We have to have the newsletter. But you really want to say, like, what is the point of having this for us, and is it doing that? So, for example, our newsletter, we really want our clients to communicate with their account rep, and we want them to sign up to come to One Quick Coffee. Those are the actions we really want them to take, so we can look and see, are people taking these actions? Spoiler alert, you are, so we are keeping the newsletter. So if you're a fan, don't worry. But it is good to say, like, what's the actual goal here? Because a lot of times we'll find as companies that we're doing a lot of extra work that isn't necessarily performing for us. And also sometimes we can think maybe this thing should be cut, but we do the opposite thing. Like for The Localist, the podcast does well, but not compared to like a true crime podcast or a celebrity podcast. My boss isn't here, so I will say he's constantly comparing us to Conan O'Brien's podcast. So compared to that, we're small potatoes. But we look back to our original goals for the podcast, which is to consistently have small businesses that we're communicating with and to put out a free resource for other small businesses. And it is definitely doing that. We have like at least 30 guests a year come through, sit down with us, talk to us, and we've seen really cool contacts come out of that. So just make sure you are drilling down into the goal for that specific promotion and thinking like, are we doing more work than we have to? Could we pull back on this? Like even taking The Localist, for example, we still do guest interviews every other week, but I was also doing like a 10 or 15 minute like tip episode between those. And we looked at the time and we were like, they were performing well, but our goal with The Localist is to like do community outreach to make those connections. And so we were like, we can still hit that goal and we can do half the number of episodes, So this is really helpful to be able to say like, what do we really want out of this and can we pull back in some areas? Okay, so once we knew what we had, because we had our content bank, how did we know how to use it? So first we really looked at where we wanted to post. Now we don't have a TikTok. We had an Instagram we were pretty active on, a LinkedIn that was limping along. We posted when we had events. And we weren't posting YouTube shorts, but we were on YouTube. So we're kind of looking at these places that we wanted to post when we were thinking about social media. And you want to know where you're posting because you want to be able to format the content in your content bank to kind of fit what that platform wants. So when we're looking at videos, so Infomedia is a website development company. We shoot a lot of videos for websites, and we do I don't do that. Paul and Aaron do a great job at that. But most website videos are that horizontal look, So when we are looking at, we couldn't just take those horizontal videos and slap them onto social media. I mean, you can. Most of these platforms will support those videos. But generally, Reels are that vertical format, YouTube Shorts are the vertical format, and we according to our research, LinkedIn videos also do better because a lot of people use LinkedIn on their phones, so you can still see that video better. It is convenient because that means you can shoot one shape and use it for several things. But what we do, when we shoot videos now, like in our studio, you'll see we shoot the entire video so we could use it in a horizontal space, but we shoot it keeping in mind that we are going to crop this to vertical. So that is really helpful to keep in mind. If you are doing it yourself, I would recommend just shoot it vertical in the first place. This is more than I could do myself. But if you are having somebody professional, like Infomedia or somebody else do it, you can have them set it up and say, like, I'm gonna be cropping this to vertical, but I want the horizontal as well. So you do wanna have vertical eventually. For social media, you wanna keep this pretty short. There are people who can have longer videos and have them work, but that is more difficult to do. So if you are starting out, I would say keep it under a minute. Really, if you can keep it under 30 seconds, that's super helpful. TikTok especially rewards you if people watch the whole video. So if you're making like a 2-minute video, people are knocking off at 15 seconds and you're getting killed in the algorithm. So you essentially keep it short. All of the platforms like it short. Add captions and titles for sure. We've kind of experimented either way, but we found that we like doing the captions in the app itself. So we like LinkedIn to do the LinkedIn captions, Instagram to do the Instagram captions. That's a little bit of preference, but we've found that they perform a little bit better for us. And then also make sure there's a title on your video, so when people are scrolling through, they can quickly see, oh, like I do want to watch this because I know what it's about. So you can see that on those videos here. Also, we kind of experiment. A lot of times we'll just add the title in the app like you're seeing there. It's a kind of plain. But then sometimes, like when we have a localist guest, we do a title card for it, so that's a little bit more designed. And so if you are concerned about your feed, which isn't a huge thing on social anymore, but it can look really nice, so you can also have that title card that you can upload as like the first look. And then make quick cuts. When you have like normal speaking, when you have normal speaking, that's normal speaking. When you're speaking normally, you have like breaks in your speaking, or you say filler words like and isn't filler word, but you have these little things. Just cut them out when you're doing social. It is fine that that you can tell there's a cut. It's better to be able to tell there's a cut and have the video running short, because just the attention span is so short. And when we're talking about photos on social, I would usually try to post a carousel of photos where you have several photos at once instead of just doing one photo in the feed. Those just don't perform as well anymore. You can do it like the photos here, where our designers have gone in and actually made it obvious that you can swipe through and done something cool with that. That is really neat to do. Also, if you don't have a resource for that, just put several regular photos. It's just like, I wouldn't post one photo, just post like 5 or 10 photos, encourage people to swipe through. And this is also where you can mix in graphics. Typically, I wouldn't recommend just doing like one static graphic post anymore, but you can do like 5 steps to website security or something, and then make people ask people to swipe through. And you can also mix in some of those photos to that carousel as well. You can definitely reuse photos, so just because you've used them in a carousel doesn't mean you can't use them again. And also identify your voice. I'm not getting a ton into writing captions and things here, and I don't recommend really using AI to write your captions. It's still super cheesy, etc. But I also know that a lot of people are definitely going to use AI to write your captions. So if you are, here's a couple tips that I like. You can ask AI to analyze your writing style. So pick like 3 to 5, try to make them like chunks of text, like paragraphs that you like from your website or from your marketing materials or something like that. Feed that into AI and say, analyze my writing style. And it will do a pretty good job of saying, like, for Infomedia, it's like, you're knowledgeable and friendly, you don't like to use jargon, that kind of thing. And then you can take that and then tell AI, here is my writing style, here is a caption style I like, here's the details. It will do a little bit better job. Also tell it, don't use too many emojis, don't use em-dashes, like those hallmarks of AI copy. If you tell it not to do that, it will do it anyway, but then you can tell it again. No, I really meant that. So I still don't recommend using it. I think it performs better if you have a human writing it, or at least really reviewing it. But if you are going to use it, if you just don't have the capacity, I would do that to try to get a better product. You can also take that little paragraph of your writing style and give it to a freelancer or a marketing company and help them do a better job getting your voice, which I think is a great use for it. Or you can hire Infomedia. We do this whole brand voice workshop where we sit down for like, I think it's half a day, like 4 hours, and just really ask you, drill down into a bunch of questions, and we just give you a good document that you can give marketing companies, freelancers, other people who work in your company so they get your voice right. Okay, so I wanted to show you some of the actual content we were talking about. So I'm going to show you some of the content and then also kind of give you a DIY way to do it. So obviously, I think you should hire Infomedia for all your photo video needs. We would love to help. But we also want these talks to be something that you can do whether or not you're using us. So we did have really good photos. One of the things the marketing manager had done was, for the past couple of years, she booked 2 to 4 shoots a year that were just like us getting kind of stock photos that we could use. So sometimes we went to like breweries and shot, sometimes we shot in the office. We would wear different stuff so you can kind of like use it over and over, so we're not like Jana is wearing a bright pink fuzzy sweater in every single photo we ever shoot of her. So we kind of got a good rhythm there. This was really helpful to us when we did have that gap in posting, because we had this whole library of photos. So obviously we were lucky to have that, but you can go ahead and create that for yourself now if you want to. If you've been to my talks before, you knew I was going to plug my newsletter at some point. This is that time. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can do this here. I'll also put this code up at the end so you can do it then. But I have like a checklist for a shoot day. So like I want to remind people, bring 2 or 3 outfits, or at least 2 or 3 like blazers or sweaters or things like that, so that you could kind of cheat and look like it's different days. I put like when we remind people, what's in our kit for like touch-ups on the day of, just like the checklist of things that are easy to forget, like making sure your key person is not on PTO, or like if we come out to shoot your trucks, wash them before we get out there. Like Paul's been multiple times waiting for a truck to be washed. So that's just like our checklist of things like hiding your cords, because those really, they disappear to us when we're looking at a desk, and then every photo looks super messy because there are cords everywhere. So anyway, so if you want that list, that is free when you sign up. But you can set up an office shoot day. I do think the best case scenario is to hire photographers to come in and shoot for you. And then you can also, I think it's great to do that and then capture behind the scenes with a phone or something like that, and you can kind of get a double post out of that. But if you can't afford that, of course you can use your phone. The technology is there, but also you have to have somebody who's good at composition and understanding light and styling, and to some extent that is what you're paying for when you get professionals. But it depends on what your budget is if you can do that. We also looked at some of our existing website videos that were shot in a horizontal format. So they're shot horizontally, and also they're kind of long, like they're like 2 minutes long, which is fine for a website, but if you want to see what this car thing is about, oh, there's captions, never mind. I was like, you can go to our social media. The websites were not shot to be edited. Now you can shoot them to be edited to social, but these we shot we didn't have this in mind. So we couldn't take every single website video and find a good clip of it, because you have to have a clip that's short enough to work on social and that looks good in a vertical crop. And that wasn't every single one, but we did find several videos where that did actually work out, like that video of Jimmy. So if you have videos that are already on your website or that you've used for something else, typically if you want to have them re-edited, you do want to go back to the team that shot them, because unless you bought the raw footage, that probably isn't available to you. If you're an Infomedia client, we have the footage, so we can re-edit those. But that is something that you can do. You can reapproach them and say, can we re-edit these? Now, you may not be able to get great stuff out of it because it's going to be limited to what you're doing retroactively. But also, if you're scheduling new videos to be shot, you can talk to your team and say, I want these shot horizontal, I want these shot for a website, but I want to be able to use them on social media. Now, the time to have that conversation is when you first buy it and you're first having the conversation. When you're on the shoot, it's kind of too late. And then when they're done, again, you won't be able to get the same amount out of it. But the Infomedia team especially is used to saying this. Now we do, like you saw with the podcast studio, we'll shoot horizontal and we know we're going to do a vertical crop, but that way we still have both formats. So just talk to your team about that before you shoot. We also went back and looked at some of our content that we had and thought, how can we present this differently? So we have great looking websites, but when you're scrolling through social media and then you hit a website that's also scrolling, that's just like weird. It's gonna be like a tiny postage stamp, you know? So we had our design team look at different ways to show the work that we had that was more engaging on social. And you can do this by looking at your portfolio shots, your product photos, things like that, and either work with a designer or you can work in Canva and use some of their existing templates. I think it's a really great idea to use video on these. So like if we did scrolling on the one you just saw, I think that would be great. And in Canva, they have templates, even in the free version, that are just video templates. So you can kind of throw your images into that and see what it looks like. And if you don't want to do that, at least do like a carousel and don't just do one image at a time. We also had existing event content. So we obviously do events. You are at one right now. This is something we probably always should have done, but it never occurred to us. We always capture these events. We put them up on YouTube after the event. So we were getting the video, but we never turned that video into social media clips. And so now we are doing that. So in a very meta way, you can see what I was wearing last One Quick Coffee. But we got, I think, like 6 or 7 clips out of that event that then we can use on social media. So if you have a company meeting or a conference that you're going to or a holiday party or something like that, you can capture this and keep an eye toward social media. When you're doing that, definitely have someone capture the content. You can hire Infomedia. You can have somebody just capturing the content. We also find it's really useful to have somebody kind of taking notes. So right now, like Aaron and Paul are shooting, and Caleb is taking notes in the back of things that I'm saying that he thinks would be good for social media. So it's not like he's writing down the timestamps. Those don't line up perfectly, but at least we don't have our team watching me talk for an hour live and then watching the whole thing again and trying to pull out clips. We're just using our time better that way. And we also have a video that, this one is a little more unique to Infomedia. This is a little tougher to DIY, but we're relying so much on this that I still wanted to talk about it. So we actually launched this as a product, I think in February, where people, and we did this with our own team too, they can just come into our podcast studio. This is Grayson, so I'll use him as an example. Grayson just comes in for half an hour or an hour. We interview him, like I was on the other side of that table interviewing him, just like he's on a podcast basically. But we interview them about the things they're a subject matter expert in. So we don't say prep for this, study. It actually comes out worse if you do. It's kind of better because we're asking the questions and we're also gonna edit that video. So if they trip up a little bit or if they say something that we're like, oh, we don't wanna put that on social, we have control, we can edit that. So they just come in, have a conversation. It's only like 30 minutes to an hour of their time. And then when they walk out of the studio, we can turn around at least 5 reels out of that, usually like a handful of reels. So Grayson gives us half an hour of his time, and then we can share a video of Grayson once a month for half a year, you know? And then also our team, most people will also promote this on their own social. So this also gives us a way that we can share it on our social, add Grayson as a collaborator. He also adds it to his LinkedIn. Grayson's great at LinkedIn. You should definitely connect. So we've found really good traction out of these kind of like videos that show the authority of our subject matter experts. You can do this on your own. It's just a little trickier. So I kind of fake this for myself. I'll set up a camera. I'll like sneak in the studio in the lunch break, Slack somebody, how do I turn the lights on in here? Set up my own camera and pretend I'm talking to somebody. So when you see my social, half the time, there's nobody there. But that is a little easier for me because like I do these events, I do my own social media all the time, and I do podcasting. So I don't have any special skills there, but I have done it a lot of times. It's definitely gonna be hard. You don't wanna grab like your accountant and be like, do your fake social media stuff, you know? So if this works out if you can, fake is a strong word, I guess. Anyway, you can kind of DIY this, but it is a little easier with Infomedia because we already have the studio, you're just walking in and out. So we do try to keep that price point pretty good in case you're interested. So look at all your photo video assets, but also don't sleep on your text content either. You know, like you have blogs. This is our training center, which is like a blog. We also have Google reviews. If you have a blog that is long and kind of well written, you probably have several headlines that could actually be turned into one of those graphic carousels. So like if we have a blog on website security and the headlines are like, keep your passwords secure, limit your users, hire someone who does backups, those really lend themselves to be like 3 steps for website security, and you can kind of like swipe through. So you've already created this content. There are other ways to use it, even if it's text content, or you could use that as inspiration for if you're going to do one of those authority videos, like what could you talk about there? And Google reviews are a great one too, to kind of like take some of your best Google reviews, have your designer mock them up or put them into Canva, and then kind of drop them into some of those photo carousels. I wouldn't do a whole carousel of just Google reviews. That's kind of, well, braggy, but also I don't think it would perform. But just dropping those in and kind of like, you know, reminding your clients how much people love you is just like another source of content that is really good, helpful to use. Okay, so if I've convinced you to do this, your next step would be to build that content bank. Like look at all the things that you've already created, all the work that you've already put in, and see if you can gather those things together to give yourself something to consistently pull from. I would say even if you are distributing the work throughout the company of a marketing manager, or you're hiring a freelancer, or you're hiring a marketing company, still have one stakeholder who's putting their eyes on everything. It does help everything to be a little more consistent and to make sure you aren't like going one direction on your Instagram and a totally different one on your newsletter or whatever. Go ahead and set a recurring date to invite people into your office to capture content, kind of start to build that stock library. It really helps us to actually set these dates like once a year, because then you're not fighting calendars for it. If you are using Infomedia, you could go ahead and set up all 4 of those. I'm going to say this, and sales is going to be like, that's not how it works. But I think you could say, I want to book 4 sessions. I want to pay for them like right before the session, so that if you're like, hey, our spring section, we just don't need it. We don't have time. As long as you like, you know, call ahead of time, like a month ahead of time or something, you could go ahead and say, we're not going to do that one. You know, like we can kind of work on the pricing for you. Or even if you're capturing it yourself or you have an on-site photographer, just go ahead and book those sessions. You'll be very thankful for it later. And then if you are interested in one of those authority videos, you can talk to me after, and I will help you find somebody who actually knows about booking. But we do try to keep that price point low. And then also you can always go to infomedia.com and fill out our contact form about any of this stuff, and we'll get somebody to help you. Okay, so does this help long term? Are you just putting a lot of work in that's going to last 3 months, and then you're like, well, we have to reinvent the wheel again when we hire? It does help long term. For one thing, it really helps to kind of step back and make sure your brand voice and your visual brand, all of that is consistent. It also makes less of a scramble to create content. Because even if you hire a social media manager or a company to do your social media, they're not going to be able to control creating all of that content. So having your team kind of regroup and make a system for how to participate in creating content is actually helpful long-term also. Also, you're just going to put less time into this if you're creating less content in the first place. And then if you end up hiring a marketing company or a freelancer to do this, it really helps your internal and external companies to stay aligned. If you can give them like a write-up of what your voice is and deliver a content bank, you're gonna get such better results. So if you've hired somebody outside before part-time and you're getting like, this just isn't us, if you can deliver like, this is our voice and here's a bunch of content, suddenly you will see that you're getting more personalized content. So it definitely will help. That is the end. I say this every time, but I have not figured out a better way to end this. Sign up for my newsletter. And if you are already signed up for my newsletter, just scroll to the bottom of any of them and you'll get a link to the resources folder. I hate when people are like, sign up and you get this thing, and I'm like, I'm already signed up. Why am I being punished? So anyway, whenever I offer like a freebie, you'll also get it if you're a subscriber. So anyway, questions? Pearl? The question is, I think this is the question. If you're selling something, should you post on Instagram and just let it post to Facebook, or should you post it to Instagram and post it to Facebook separately? I will say I'm not an expert on that, and we also double booked our marketing company, so they're not here today. I would say my instinct, though, is if you really want both of those to be a content pillar or like a drive sales for you, I would do them separately. I don't personally do them separately because I don't care. Like, this is terrible of me to say on video, but my Facebook is mostly like my parents' friends and people I went to high school with. So I'm not like the people who follow me on Facebook. So I'm fine just putting it on and like my cousins. I'm fine just putting it on Instagram. That's where I'm actually interacting with people, and then it goes to Facebook, and I get what I get from that. Yes, they're different markets for sure. You can come up. Pam, come up here. We'll trade off questions.
So yes, Facebook and Instagram are going to have different user groups. They are owned by the same company, but you have different people that are going to be active on Facebook than they are active on Instagram. So it does help you to, if you want, like she said, both of them to perform separately, it does help to put the content and make that content fit to what Facebook is looking for and what Instagram is looking for. But if your Facebook is like Carrie's and mostly full of your cousins, it probably doesn't matter. It really just depends on what you're trying to get out of Facebook and Instagram, whether or not you want to just make them the same or whether you want to make them specific to the audiences that you have there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it just depends, but for you, it may not matter. But if it really depends on your audience and what you're trying to get out of each. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want both of them to perform for you financially, you do need to post separate. If you're like, this one, I'll take what I can get, then, which is what I'm doing. I will say one of my cousins thought I hated her because I never responded. I was like, I don't hate you, I just hate Facebook. Which Facebook's fine, it's fine. All right, yes? Do you have any tips for shirts on how to organize your content? Label it as a photo or video, or just have a folder that you have, like the day of the event? Yeah, well, we did one thing during the gap, and then we actually have hired a virtual assistant just very recently that we did all of this ourselves. We created the content bank, wrote up our voice and the goal of each channel, and then we delivered it to her, and it's actually been fantastic. So she uses Airtable, a way to organize things. So I'm gonna give you the future, which is the past, and then I don't know. We were organized when it came to our photo and video, and that's because we do that professionally for other people. So that is amazing. Like for photos, for example, if you buy from Infomedia, I think it's called PixieSet, that it organizes it. We organize according to events. So if I'm looking for One Quick Coffee pictures, it's super easy. I can just find them super, super easily. So that was really well organized already because our team did that. And then video, they also have organized. I think for clients, do we do a Vimeo or what do we do? Yeah. Okay, so we don't do everything for ourselves that we do for clients. But for clients, they have a Vimeo, so they'll have all of their stuff there. Now, again, when I talked about that gap from like creating it to actually posting it, we weren't filling that gap very well. So what we did in the in-between time is we just really just made a spreadsheet of here's the video we want to use, here's a link to the video, here are notes on what that video says. I had like a column for like YouTube, Instagram, like all the platforms, so we could do like an X when we ran it, and then just like internal notes. Like one of them is like, this is good for Clay's individual LinkedIn, but doesn't need to go on Infomedia's. So when we were trying to group all of these departments together who weren't talking to each other, we used a spreadsheet to like kind of just get through those next couple months to figure out how to do it better, if that makes sense. Grayson.
For the authority videos, so I think there's can be a misconception that people think they just need to jump in the studio and just say, here's our company and what we do. Are there creative ways that you see clients or us or maybe ideas you might have personally of creative ways that authority videos can not sound like someone just pitching their company or services?
Yeah, definitely. So Grayson's question is like, if you do a authority video, I think the instinct is just to be like, hey, we're Infomedia, we're so great, like hire us. So, and those things don't typically perform well. So like, how do we get people kind of out of that mindset and thinking about what they should actually say? Probably the short answer is like, go to your frequently asked questions. Now, yeah, if you have them on the website, great, but like the actual frequently asked questions. So talk to your sales team, your account reps, your support team, and be like, what do people actually care about? Also, one of the things that I forget a lot is like, what are the things like when you meet somebody in the world and you say what you do and they're like, what is that? Like, what questions do they ask you? That's what people are really curious about. Definitely also ask your staff. Like when we were doing the website for Church Street, we'd worked on all of this stuff, and then I asked the staff, and they were like, well, we have a bunch of gluten-free items, which I hadn't, like they were on there, but I hadn't made a big deal of them. Or they were like, well, the breakup cookie, which again, it was listed as a product, but like it wasn't like a big deal, and it is a big deal in Birmingham. So your frequently asked questions, ask your team who's interacting with clients what those are, and ask your staff, like all of your staff, like what do you think we should cover? If you are, I know I'm pitching Infomedia so much more than normal, but if you are using Infomedia, we have like interviewers who are kind of trained to interview. So we have like 4 of us who do that. So that's a little easier if you step into the studio, because like I'm used to getting people to talk to me about stuff that, well, they do want to talk about, but anyway. On The Localist, I actually was a journalist, so I'm also used to getting people to talk about stuff they don't want to talk about. It helps that I have a voice of the child and people don't think I'm really going to tell anyone. But now I do a different thing, so we aren't like exposing people on The Localist or anything. Don't tell me things. I will tell everybody. Somebody was talking to me at work and they said, are you like a therapist and I can tell you anything? I was like, no, I'm like a reporter. If you want it off the record, you need to tell me before you say it. So anyway, Infomedia does make that part a little smoother because you can kind of give us more bullets and we kind of can create those questions. But that is great because, yes, you don't want to just get in there and do a video of you talking about how great your company is. Nobody's going to watch that. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. This actually wraps up the whole season of One Quick Coffee. We typically don't do them in fourth quarter, and we kind of start slowly in Q1 because, like, we don't have time and you don't either. But all of the things that all of the One Quick Coffees we've had for the past, I think at least 2 seasons, maybe 3, we record and put up on our YouTube channel. So that's infomedia.com. The .com is spelled out. I don't know, we inherited that handle, and it's not ideal. It's actually literally difficult to type out the words .com. But now you won't forget our handle because it's difficult. But if you look there, if you like this talk, we'll have this up in a few weeks too. We usually typically get them out like a month ahead of time, or a month after. And then everything else we talked about is there. I also did a talk a few weeks ago called turn one piece of content into 10 or something like that. So that is also like really applicable to this. And last season, Taylor and Elena and I did a talk called Recipe for Reels, where we talked about how to shoot reels if you're doing it like DIY. So those 2 talks would probably be particularly good. But until then, follow us on social and listen to The Localist. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Anyway, but thank you guys for coming. Thanks for listening to our live One Quick Coffee event. One Quick Question is brought to you by Infomedia. So at Infomedia, we're a web service company, and that means anything to do with your website, whether it is building and designing your website or shooting photos or video for your site or writing copy for your site, we can help you handle that, and we would love to help. Go to infomedia.com/quick-question to find out more. One Quick Question is developed and hosted by me, Carrie Rollwagon. Our theme music is written and performed by Brad Davis, and our sound engineer is Paul Bryant, who's in the studio with me today. So I'll leave you with this thought. A real expert helps to clarify, not confuse. So don't take website advice from someone who can't give you a straight answer.